What's good, YouTube fam? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Jamal, Credit Protector. I help small business owners and entrepreneurs get access to funding, both in the business and personal side, so that you can use that credit to scale up your business in any way you see fit. Today, we're going to talk about why are we getting denied even when we have quote unquote good credit. By good credit, I mean we have a 700 plus and some instances a 800 plus, but we're still getting denied when we're going for funding. This topic, this actually has come up multiple times this week, and I've helped several of my clients overcome this. And what I want to do is go through about, I only have a few minutes. I'm going to go through 8 reasons why you may be getting denied, even though you have an amazing credit score. Now, disclaimer, this is why we say your credit score don't mean shit. It doesn't mean anything because you can absolutely 100% still get denied with a quote unquote good credit score. Having a 700 plus is the bare minimum that at least tells you that you are in fact on the right path. One of the first things I like to start off on the easy stuff and then work our way up to the more complex. So sidebar, even before we get to step one, I'm going to call this step zero. Make sure you're looking at your FICO score. This is super important. Make sure you're looking at your FICO score. This, we're not talking about Credit Karma. We're not talking about any other service that uses a Vantage score. Make sure you're 100% looking at the FICO score. Once you're looking at the FICO score, okay, cool. That's the first step. Next thing we have to do, now that you know that you're looking at the FICO score, but you're still getting denied, right? Let's talk about why that may be. Why is this happening? I had a client recently. Well, let's start off with this. First thing is, are any of your accounts frozen? I was recently working with one of my clients. We're going to help them get funding, and we went to Cap on Tap. Cap on Tap, they are a business credit card, mostly a fintech. They do a soft pull on your personal credit. My client has a 720. We were going through several other fintechs, right? When we got to Cap on Tap, they actually said, hey, we can't approve you right now because make sure that all of your credit profiles are unfrozen. What's going on, everybody? As you guys tap in, just let me know where you're tapping in from. Share this out with everyone you know so that everyone can take these steps and use it to their full advantage. Okay. One thing you want to do. So in this instance, all we had to do was go back to his LexisNexis report and his TransUnion report to remove any freezes off of his account, off of his credit report. When you're doing and checking whether or not your credit bureaus are frozen, your credit reports, make sure you go directly to the source. So that means we're not looking at Credit Karma. We're not looking at Identity IQ. We're not looking at Smart Credit. We're not looking at any third party. We like those. Those are great. But for the sake of unfreezing, we want to go directly to the source. We want to go to transunion.com, unfreeze. We want to go to Experian.com, unfreeze. We want to go to Equifax.com and unfreeze. Freezing and unfreezing your report is 100% free, and typically it's instantaneous. So you can freeze and unfreeze, generally speaking, as much as you want. Sometimes they try to trip you up and put like a limit, but for the most part, it's unlimited. Okay. You want to make sure you don't confuse that with locking and unlocking. Locking and unlocking does the same thing, but that's typically part of one of their paid services. Okay, it's just the same thing, just different words, so that they can try and charge you unnecessarily. But that's one reason. Okay, make sure everything is unfrozen. Once you check that, make sure that you don't have any fraud alerts on your credit report before you go for any kind of funding. Fraud alerts, you can remove those pretty easily. Typically, you would do it over the phone, just calling TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian, speaking to the customer service and telling them you want the fraud alert removed or lifted from your credit report. You can always add the fraud alert on later. I was working with a client, we were going for 70,000. They're located down in Texas, and some vendors will call you to verify your identity when you have a fraud alert. But here's the thing. If you don't answer that phone call when they call, it's for them is an automatic denial. They sometimes they don't even give you a window of time to call back to verify who you are or that you even submitted the report. I'm sorry, submitted the application. They'll just outright deny you. So make sure your fraud alerts are removed. You can always add on a fraud alert after you finish your round of funding. Another reason that you may be getting denied is because you have what's called a mixed file. Mixed files, for instance, your name is Richard, but sometimes you may use your nickname of Rick or Dick on a credit credit application. When you look at your credit report, now you have three different variations of your name. If your name is something very common like Richard Thomas, and sometimes you use Rick Thomas, sometimes you use Dick Thomas, that name is so common that you can actually get mixed up with other individuals with the same exact name in the computer system. So make sure that your credit profile is not getting mixed up with any other person's, especially if you have a common name. You can figure out or guess if you're having a mixed file because one, you'll when you look at your credit report, you'll immediately start seeing other versions of your name that you never used before. You'll also start to you'll also see phone numbers that you never had. You'll see addresses that you never lived at. These are the easiest and clearest signs that somehow your credit information has been mixed up with someone else's. In some instances, I've seen my clients have spouses and they were never married. In one rare instance, I've seen someone with two social security numbers. So obviously, that's a mixed file. You want to clear that up. Make sure you only have one version of your name, one address, one social, one date of birth appearing on your credit report so that so that your information does not get confused with anyone else's. Okay? That's very important because the banks and these computerized systems, they don't do any second guessing or any deeper investigation. If the computer can't figure out who or what you are, then it's just going to deny you. Okay. Next reason, and I see this is probably the most common, and this is where we have to do a lot more education in making sure and correcting some of our previous behaviors. You can have a 750, a 720, a 812, and your build out of your credit report still isn't strong enough to go for funding, especially if you want 50, 50, 60, 70, 100, $150,000 in funding. You want to make sure that your credit profile is fully built out. Let's dive into that a little more, right? So, what do I mean when I say it's fully built out or built out correctly? You want to make sure your credit profile is built out correctly. First, you want to make sure definitely that you have enough accounts on your credit report. You want $50,000, $60,000 sometimes even just a $12 or $15,000 credit card. The banks are going to want to see that you have at least 5 primary accounts. What is a primary? That's 5 accounts that are showing up in your name, right? That are at least 6 months old. I would give it even more and say at least 12 months old. Okay. What happens is that I speak to many people who are in a rebuilding phase. Maybe they're brand new to credit, or you just got out of, not just got out of, but let's say you're rebuilding, you're a few years after a bankruptcy, or you just worked with a credit repair specialist who was able to wipe everything off of your credit. Congratulations. Now you're in the rebuilding phase. You may have 5 accounts on your credit report. You may even have a 750 because you built it out with those 5 accounts. But here's the thing. If those 5 accounts are all under 6 months old, that's not enough time. The 5 accounts that are in your name should be or need to be at least 6 months old before you can go for any quote unquote real kind of funding, right? So the next thing is, I've also seen the inverse. You build out your report with all authorized users. So you have 5, 6, 7, 8 accounts, but none of them are in your name. That is a report, even though you have this great score that pops up, amazing. None of the banks trust you because none of the credit that's showing up on your report actually belongs to you. You need, not just want, you need to have at least 5 primary accounts in your name. Out of those 5, they all need to be at least 6 months old, because you can't technically get a FICO score until you've had an open account for at least 6 months. The next thing is, when you're doing and you're building up your credit, make sure you have a good mix. All right. Before you can go to like Lightstream or Upgrade or Upstart to get these personal loans, these personal lines of credit, or these personal credit cards, the primaries you must have some that are with actual banks. If you only have credit builder accounts, all you have is Kickoff, Rental Karma, Rent Reporter, a self loan, and one Open Sky card, that's not going to be enough to get a $5,000 credit card, especially an unsecured $5,000 credit card. Okay. What you want to do is, you can get the Navy Federal Pledge Loan or Pledge Loan from your other favorite credit union. You also want to start looking at building with actual banks, not just credit builder accounts. If you got 5 credit builder accounts, add on 3 real banks. So that can be the Navy Federal Secured Credit Card. That can be the Chase Freedom Rise credit card. That all you need to do is open up a checking account with $250. And you can also get, if you're a student, right? Or let's say you're 25 and you have a college email, you can get a student credit card from Capital One or from Discover. Add those onto your profile. Again, also let them sit for 6 months and then try again for funding. Another reason that you may have gotten denied, even though you have great credit, even though you have a 720, a 745, is you have too many hard inquiries. I work with a client who we went for funding. He thought the hard inquiries had been removed, but after submitting an application, they said no, he couldn't get it because he had too many hard inquiries. When we pulled up his credit report, he had 9 hard inquiries. So we actually had to double back. We had to remove and wipe off those 9 hard inquiries. We got them. We took off 6 of them. And then we turned around and we went back and using a few different banks who pull TransUnion, like Elon Financial, U.S. Bank. We got Comerica. We got him $50,000 in zero interest funding after making sure that we clinked off those hard inquiries. Okay. The last reason, which is a bit more complicated, that's why I wanted to end with this, is somewhere, somehow, you may need to just go to a different bank. I've worked with some clients where, in their earlier years, they may be in their 30s, their 40s right now, but when they were in their 20s, or in some cases early 30s, you know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? They was doing different things, and they weren't as responsible, and they didn't know what they didn't know. So you may be flagged in a bank's database somewhere. And the thing about those flags is they're not going to show up on your credit report, and they're internal. So like Chase, I had a client while I worked with them. We went for Chase, and for whatever reason, she is internally flagged with Chase. For we don't know why, we don't know what's going on, but it literally the denial reason was client does not have a positive relationship with Chase. So instead of fighting it, going back and forth with them, we just worked around and worked with other banks. Another client used to some years ago, they had a bad relationship with BB&T. BB&T is now Truist Bank. Because of her bad relationship with BB&T, guess what? There she is still flagged in Truist ecosystem. So she doesn't currently have access to Truist. That's not a problem because Truist isn't the only Equifax bank. It is very fascinating. Truist isn't the only Equifax bank that's available. So sometimes if you think you may not have a good relationship with a bank, then you simply exit stage left and go to the banks that are going to do business with you. Okay. These are 8 reasons that you may be getting denied even though you have a high credit score. That means you have a 720 or above. In some instances, you may have an 800 and you may still be getting denied. I'm going to recap them really quick. And here are the solutions. You may have a freeze on your credit, so remove the freeze. You may have a fraud alert on your credit. Remove the fraud alert. You may have a mixed file. You're going to want to fix that and make sure only your contact information is on your credit report. Your credit profile may not be built properly. How can we fix that? Make sure that you have at least 5 accounts that are in your name that are 6 to 12 months old. Don't solely rely on authorized users or credit builder accounts. You want to have actual banking relationships showing up on your credit report from actual financial institutions. Other thing is you don't want to have too many authorized users on your credit. You should have more primaries showing up on your credit than you have authorized users showing up on your credit. You also want to make sure you don't have too many hard inquiries. Keep them below 4. And sometimes you just have to move on and go to another bank. There are over 4,000 banks in the United States. If one bank is not rocking with you, if 4 banks are not rocking with you, just move on to the next bank or next several banks. All right. If any of you need help, you have a 700 plus, but you still are running into a brick wall when it comes to your funding and your funding strategy, feel free to click the link in the channel description or the description of any videos. Book a call with me. Happy to go through your profile, see what may be missing, and how we can create a funding strategy for you. I'll talk to everyone later. Definitely make sure you leave a like, subscribe, hit a comment, and I see you guys in the next one. Peace.